The next presentation by Peter Kitchen is on some work on a NCAA Division I. So I thought it might be helpful to explain the USA, the NCAA division system, and also what is a full scholarship. Because I know Peter's going to talk about some of the, getting a hockey scholarship in the United States. What does that really mean? I actually teach civil engineering at Michigan Tech, but one of the cool jobs I've had there for a number of years is the faculty athletic representative. And every university in the United States that has an NCAA program has a faculty member that oversees, appointed by the president of the university, that oversees the athletic program. So I sign off on eligibility, compliance. I get to go to the NCAA conferences. I'm on several committees. I represent the university at the WCHA, other conferences. So I guess, as my wife always gives me, I also get free tickets to hockey games. And a good excuse to go to other sporting events on campus. So I'm kind of fairly familiar with the NCAA rules. We test our coaches. They have to go through tests every year on what the rules are. And say I sign off on student athletes coming in. So I'm kind of the last signature. You always wonder when you hear these scandals at different universities, you wonder where has the FAR been? Sometimes they're ignored at some universities. So, but we're fortunate at Michigan Tech. So let's say I'm at Michigan Tech. I don't know if you recognize, this cartoon is very famous at Michigan Tech. Actually, I was the author, so you'll want to find out that later. So basically, you start to look at it, is really the late 1890s, and Andy talked a little bit about the development of college hockey in the United States. Really probably started in northeast United States with club teams. That's where the players would play. They weren't on scholarships necessarily. The first league was almost like the first of the Ivy League, the higher level schools. They were playing some of the U.S. or Canadian schools. This is the first star of college hockey in the United States. It's Hobie Baker. The P is correct, so it's so you see. And then in the 1920s, it was really kind of after the First World War. Several colleges and universities then started varsity programs, intercollegiate programs, and club hockey programs. That really started in the 1920s. And it is, what we'll see is it has grown. As Davey pointed out, the Theodore Roosevelt, really in the early 1900s, in his work questioning the safety of football. And he threatened to close down college football because several players were killed in that 1903 following his statement. And so really Roosevelt called the presidents of the universities together and said, you better get your act organized. And there's a lot of football players coming in just to play football and never seen classrooms and so on. So they really, his work really was the foundation work that became the National Collegiate Athletic Association. They really set out the rules and regulations, who can play, all the recruiting rules. They set out all the rules for college athletes in the United States. They also then started to sponsor national championships. Among the first to be sponsored national championships were football and boxing and track and field. The first men's ice hockey came in 1948. It was the first men's intercollegiate championship. And then in 1973, they introduced 3 divisions in the NCAA, a Division I, Division II, and Division III. And we'll see that, how that all fits in. So Peter's going to be primarily talking about Division I. Those are often the big schools that have many different sports. The 1948 NCAA champion was the University of Michigan. They defeated Dartmouth University in a kind of a tournament that was in Colorado Springs. And the Broadmoor hotels sponsored or offered their facilities for, and they were the host for the first 5 or 6 of the national championships. So when I say Division I, Division II, Division III, what does it all mean? Well, basically Division I, or you often think of it as D1, is there are probably about 350 colleges and universities. So a university will designate where they fit. Division I will have athletic scholarships available. They will cover the cost of attendance, and I'll explain that in a little while. And there are scholarships available. Division II, Michigan Tech is a Division II school with Division I hockey, so they kind of got grandfathered in. But there are about 300 colleges and universities in this Division II. They have some athletic scholarships, but they're very limited. So like a football team will have a limited number of scholarships available to their football players. Division I has a fairly large limit. It's about 95 scholarships that they can give to their football players. Division II, it's about 35 or 40. Division III are generally smaller universities. There you can see the numbers, about 450 of those in the United States, and they have no athletic scholarships. So just to kind of give you an idea. Now in terms of ice hockey, Division I has 60 teams. Let's look at the men's side here first. There are 60 teams. There are 6 different conferences and 1 independent. And the 1 independent is Arizona State. They're not in a conference. But other 59 teams are in one of 6 conferences. Division II, there are 6 schools in the United States that have Division II. They're primarily in the Northeast. Because there's so few, there's no national championship. And Division III, there are 75 colleges, and there is in 9 conferences. Women's, there are no Division II women's programs. Division I has 35 or a little 35 programs, and they're in 4 conferences. And Division III is 50 or so universities that have hockey programs, and in 7 conferences. So it kind of gives you a little idea. Now, many can probably name, so here are the current champions. Division I is University of Minnesota Duluth, or UMD. They won it this year, they won it the year before. Division III is the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point. Women's, University of Wisconsin in Madison, and Plattsburgh State is in New York State is the Division III champion. So that's who's won it now. Now I said, so if I look at Division I, here are I said there were 6 conferences. I've got a couple slides if you really want to know who's in which conferences, but basically, you know, the Big Ten there are Big Ten teams in that one: Michigan State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Notre Dame plays in that as an affiliate member. The Michigan Tech is in the Western Collegiate Conference Association. Now, when one talks about a full scholarship in Division I hockey, basically, NCAA requirements are that most D1 programs offer 18 full scholarships. Now, teams in one of the conferences, they've made a conference rule, it's only 14. NCAA, the maximum that you can have is 18. There are some colleges, the Ivy League schools, Union and RIP, Rochester Institute, do not offer any athletic scholarships. So their players are on academic scholarships. They could if they wanted to, but that's what they've decided to do. Now, a typical university team may have 30 players. So you can see, well, coaches will divide their scholarships. So some players could be on a half scholarship, some can be on a quarter scholarship, some can be on no scholarship, no athletic scholarship. So players can receive some other financial award. So really, a hockey player with excellent grades may qualify for an academic scholarship. So that could save a spot to give somebody an athletic scholarship. So we have a few players at Michigan Tech. Their parents work at Michigan Tech. So because their parents at Michigan Tech, they get half tuition covered. So the coach doesn't have to pay their whole tuition. So you like to get a few of those, but you really like to get really good students because you remember you've only got 18 scholarships. Okay? Now, what the scholarship will cover, full cost of attendance is tuition and fees, room and board, books, and other costs. NCAA outlines what those other costs can be. Now, you often hear about the NCAA rule book. Here's what the NCAA rule book looks like. It has all these rules in here that coaches and compliance officers have to follow. And they take tests on them, and so that's what you always hear. But, well, why are they limited to how long a visit is? Well, the NCAA outlines all of that. You're not supposed to take cars. Boosters are not supposed to give cars to their hockey players now. The NCAA said you can't do that anymore. Okay? And so a lot of times is educating your boosters. Anybody who gives money to the university is a booster. And so they always watch those very carefully as to their influence on things. Now, this year, the D1 Men's Championship was played in Buffalo. Remember, there's 60 teams. 16 qualified or are invited to the NCAA tournament. They competed 4 regionals to get down to 4 teams in the Frozen Four. And this year the Frozen Four teams were Minnesota Duluth. They beat University of Massachusetts in the finals. The other 2 teams that competed this year were Denver and Providence. So those were the 4 teams that competed. Now the Hobey Baker, remember how that ties in? The Hobey Baker Award is given to the outstanding men's D1 Player of the Year. And this year was this Cal Makar from the University of Massachusetts. Now he's a sophomore defenseman from Calgary, Alberta. So he's signed a pro contract when the series was over, but he was actually drafted by Colorado a few years ago. So when they are drafted by Colorado, he could have signed a contract then, or he chose to go to Massachusetts, and he basically delays the decision. So he could come out anytime. Colorado would offer, well, if you have a good year, they said, well, continue to develop at Massachusetts, or he could stay there 4 years, and then his team that owns his rights basically is Colorado. He actually stepped in. He played in Buffalo, I think, on the last day. Within 2 days, he was playing in the NHL playoffs. Just kind of an amazing experience. Now, the D1 Women's Champion is given the Patty Karmarski Award as the outstanding female player. And this year it was a player from Clarkson University, Lauren Gable. Now, Patty Karmarski, she played at Princeton, and her dad, she actually died of a rare blood disease at the age of 28, and her dad donated a trophy. It's named after Patty, but she's the daughter of Dick Karmarski, which was Princeton. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. So it all, that's that sports area. Next year, the NCAA Division I is at the Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. Here's the date, so just a little over a year from now, you can come back and you could go to that event. So that's where it is next year. So that's the NCAA. Now, when students come in, the NCAA also outlines a number of regulations for them. They have to have so many courses, they have to have a GPA, they have to have a certain grade on the SAT test or the ACTs as some minimums. When they get into the university, they have to maintain a minimum GPA. They have to show progress towards a degree, and they're, you know, you can lose your eligibility quite easily. The other aspect to that is that there's something called an APR. It's a measure. If you end up with a lot of people dropping out, you can use some status and you'll be suspended from next year's NCAA competition. So this year there are a couple of basketball teams that their APR was too low, and they will not be able to be in the basketball tournament next year. University of Connecticut men's team ran into that problem a couple of years ago. So they, even though they had a poor team, but if they had done better on the court, they would have been suspended, couldn't compete in the NCAA tournament. So there is a kind of a check there. So you're penalized for people who leave early or something. You're rewarded for keeping your players there the full time. Now there's a whole bunch of other hockey, college hockey in the United States too. So you've seen the NCAA. This is the American College Hockey Association. It was established 1991, and it has club teams. And you can see there's a lot of them. Now these club teams, they're funded by their students. They're funded by student government fees, player dues, attendance, if they can attract any fans, and fundraising activities. NCAA in the United States, that is big time hockey. In many places, they will attract a lot of fans. So Michigan Tech, they average 3,000–4,000 fans for a game. It's a good money generator. And then they're in a conference that has a TV contract and so on. These ones don't have all that. But there are actually 3 men's and 2 women's divisions. They generally follow the Division III rules and regulations. There are no athletic scholarships. Actually, players from the top Division I teams are selected and represent the USA Hockey in the World's University Games. So some of the big Division I schools would be West Virginia, Illinois, Penn State was, and then they switched to the NCAA and now have a full program. So those types of, Virginia Tech had one of those schools that had these competitions. So here are this year's champions in that ACHA. Division I is Minot State. Everybody know where that is?
Yes, the ice never thaws there.
Yeah, so it's in Minnesota, in North Dakota. And see, there are 60 teams. So universities, they actually can have teams in a couple of different divisions. It's almost like a AAA and a AA team. Division II was Florida Gulf Coast. You can see the number of teams. Michigan Tech actually has a club team. They're in Division II. And Division III is actually a Canadian college that won that this year. There's 150 schools. This is the division. This is women's. They just have the 2 divisions. Liberty University and a community college out of Manitoba won their Division III. So, but you give some idea. Now the championships were held in Dallas, and for many last fall when we toured the Stars training facilities, we were in this building. So that's where, and remember our host was Lucas Reed. He was the coordinator of that event down there on behalf of the Dallas Stars as their host for that event. So now there are a number of websites. You don't have to remember all these. So there is one that you can probably remember, Hockey News. Then the NCAA. There are 2. This NCAA.com is just general information for the public. The NCAA.org. You can get your own copy of the rule book and all kinds of things that they do for student athletes and for coaches and so on. That's where they find all those details. And this last one is, you could probably remember the name and do it. So anyways, any questions or comments right off? Yes.
Hey Bill, do you see hockey ever getting to the point where equivalent to football, the FCS?
Good question. In college football, there's Division I college football, upper division of the really good teams, and then the other teams in Division I. Now, in college football, the national championship that you see is not regulated by the Ncaa. Division I football is not regulated the national championships. All the bowl games, they're not, they don't get the money. Some have suggested that there's going to be some power conferences that are better than others. The Big Ten, with their TV network, is the kind of exclusive group out there. What they're also doing is the NCAA is making an adjustment to the cost of attendance, and some of the Big Ten schools have a little more money to put into that cost to be included, some other costs, and some of the smaller schools struggle with that one. So conferences are deciding on that. Now the NCAA, their big money maker is the March Madness. That basically funds much of the all sports in the United States, is that the March Madness basketball tournament.
Did I understand you to say that if a college player has already been drafted by the NHL, he can sign a pro contract before completing his college?
Yes, he can. Yes, he can.
Isn't that become a pro?
Well, once he signs a contract, he's ineligible to be a college player. So you're drafted.
You can't sign a contract and say, I'll take the money
No.
later, but still.
No. Once you've decided to sign a contract, you're gone. The other thing is, probably Peter's going to talk about this, is playing major junior A hockey in the United States, or in United States or Canada. Because you have a stipend, you are ineligible to get an athletic scholarship because you're not an amateur anymore.
Well, isn't it more than that? You can't be on a team at all.
That's right.
It's not just you can't get a scholarship. You cannot
can't
be on a
the
college team.
because exactly right. And so where universities recruit their players are from this major junior, not super leagues, but the Alberta Junior, the Ontario Junior League, the BC League, kind of that tier down below that.
Tier 2.
Tier 2, that's it. Okay? Yes.
The kid that just won the Heisman there,
Yes.
if he decided to go play pro baseball, he could still come back to college and play college football.
Yes, he
they're
can.
allowed because of the
That's
sport.
right. Yeah, a different
That's
sport,
what
he
the
can
difference
come
is.
back. So if he'd signed a pro contract of baseball, he could still come back and play hockey. So the NCAA rules. Yes.
How good was Obi David?
At the time, he was considered the ultimate player, and it's gentlemanliness that really got him the
Well, I can answer that
Go
a
ahead.
little bit. He played for Princeton, and it's recorded in a Dartmouth hockey publication that against Yale University, he had 31 shots on goal.
And he was Frank McGee.
Somewhat.
How many offenses on?
How many backs?
Okay.
Okay, that's a quick question. How much funding does NCAA hockey get from the NHL?
I don't think they get any.
Apparently they do. Apparently they, I think what happens is that the NHL gives something like $8 million in general to USA Hockey, and USA Hockey then distributes it amongst the various levels, and so some of that would go to NCAA Hockey. And I should say that the NHL gives about $8 million to the Canadian junior leagues at the same time.
Is that sort of like the development money that the teams pay to the OHL?
maybe junior clubs
I
for
think it's
when they get
over- I
drafted?
think it's over and above.
There's a certain amount
Yeah.
for, depending on what level
I
you
think
draft
it-
at, you have to pay.
Yeah, I think it's over and
It's
above.
over and above.
Yeah.
It may go, and I don't know, I know there's, a couple of NCAA teams are sponsoring some studies done to add, somebody like University of Illinois to add a Division I program. They're funding some feasibility studies. Michigan Tech and all the schools do not get the money directly from NCAA for the hockey program. So if it's going all to NCAA, but I hadn't heard that before. I'm not familiar with that one. Okay.